Hello, you're well. Welcome to this GCSE Religious Studies lesson. I'm Ben Wardle, and today we are continuing our look at Christian practices. And today's focus is on pilgrimage. So we will be looking at two contrasting examples of Christian pilgrimage. We'll be looking at pilgrimage to Lourdes in France and to the island of Iona off the coast of Scotland. So let's start, shall we, with a quick look at the specification, which outlines everything we need to know for the Christian practices section of the exam. And as you can see, there are 9 topics. We are looking at the 5th topic today, which is pilgrimage. Please remember, we will be asked 5 questions on Christian practices in the exam, totaling 24 marks. And this video will cover everything you need to know about pilgrimage. We'll be looking at these 2 case studies, and we'll be looking at why pilgrimage is so important for many Christians. We'll be looking at what it achieves, what it's all about, and as I say, why it is so significant. So let's start, shall we, with our keyword, which is pilgrimage. And a pilgrimage is defined as a religious journey to a holy site or sacred place, and it is very much seen as an act of worship and devotion. This is a spiritual journey, and it is to a place that is very significant within the religion. So, for example, with Lourdes, it's significant because that's where Virgin Mary is believed to have appeared some 18 times. So really important that we sort of establish at the start what a pilgrimage is. And it is a religious sacred journey to a holy site or sacred place, which is seen as an act of worship and devotion. So why would somebody go on a pilgrimage? Why are pilgrimages important for many Christians? Well, we could say it's to get closer to God and strengthen your faith. It might be to seek healing. So again, at Lourdes, the water there is believed to have healing powers and properties. So people might go to seek healing, whether that's spiritual, physical, psychological, for example. It might be because they want to learn more about the history of their religion. So they might go to Bethlehem on pilgrimage, for example, to learn more about where Jesus was born. It might be to fulfill a religious duty or requirement. So if you are studying Islam as well, you'll know that one of the 5 pillars of Islam is Hajj pilgrimage. And so that is an important religious journey that every Muslim should try and make at least once in their lifetime. So, you know, it might be something people feel they have a duty to fulfill. They might have been inspired to go on pilgrimage by somebody who's already been, but it might also be so they can be inspired themselves by saints or religious figures from the past. So we'll talk about, with the case of Iona, for example, the famous saints from the past who have been to Iona, and so you might want to follow in their footsteps and seek inspiration from them. And it might also be because you want to seek guidance or answers or gain wisdom from God. So, you know, it's important for your spiritual growth and development as well. So, as I say, for our exam, we need to know about 2 contrasting places of pilgrimage. We need to know about Lourdes in France, which is an important place of Catholic pilgrimage. I like to think of it as the Disneyland of Catholicism, and you'll see why when we take a look at Lourdes. And then also Iona, which is very much contrasting. I mean, as you can see just from that image, Lourdes has millions of visitors, whereas Iona is much quieter, and it is an island off the coast of Scotland. So we're going to look at both. We're going to ask why both of them are important. You know, we'll look at their history, and we'll look at why people go there today. And then we'll look at a practice exam question as well, just so we are fully prepared and ready to secure that grade 9 in our GCSE RE exam. So let's start with our first case study, which is Lourdes in southern France. So hopefully these images are giving you a bit of a flavour of what it's like in Lourdes. You will see there the processions, for example, that take place in the evening, the candlelit processions. And you can also see there the very important shrine to the Virgin Mary, where the Virgin Mary is believed to have appeared to Bernadette when she was a young girl. And so what we will do now is we'll have a look at what happens at Lourdes why Lourdes is so important. If you have downloaded the PowerPoints, you might like to print this slide off, because what we're going to do is fill in each box. So we're going to answer these key questions, and you might like to, as I say, fill in the information as we go through. So let's take a look at what Lourdes is all about. The first thing to note is that it is in southern France. So, you know, if you are doing GCSE geography as well, there you go. You can get the world map out and you can locate where Lourdes is. It is in southern France. And 5 million pilgrims visit Lourdes every year. So it is extremely popular. Millions of people go every year. Really important to note that 70 miracles have been officially recognised by the church as taking place here. And they do actually take their verification of these very seriously. There are many more that people say have happened, but there are 70 that have been officially recognised by the church. So again, that's going to show us why it's important, because it's the place where miracles are believed to have happened. So why did Lourdes become a place of pilgrimage? Let's have a little trip down history lane. I was going to say memory lane then, but I thought, well, you know, I wasn't actually there, but never mind. We digress. Let's talk about why Lourdes became a place of pilgrimage. So in 1858, the Virgin Mary appeared to a 14-year-old girl called Bernadette. She revealed herself to Bernadette with the words, "I am the Immaculate Conception." And that obviously links back to the fact that she is called the Virgin Mary. Between February and July 1858, Mary appeared to Bernadette 18 times, and they are known as apparitions. So there were 18 apparitions. During one of these appearances, Mary told Bernadette to drink water from a spring. Now, there was actually no spring around, so Bernadette started to dig. A day or so later, water started to flow from where she had dug, and that water still flows today with a reputation for healing. So many people travel to Lourdes to bathe in this water and to actually take some of it home, because it's believed to have healing powers and healing properties. Mary also told Bernadette a chapel should be built on the site and that people should attend processions there, and that is exactly what happens today. Now, really interestingly about Bernadette, actually, after this happened, she completely transformed her life. She went and became a nun, so that obviously shows you the transformative impact that those visions had on her. But interestingly, she never returned to the site. She never returned to Lourdes, and actually she then sadly died aged 35. So it clearly had a massive impact on her, but she then never returned to the site itself. She went away, became a nun, and then she actually died aged 35. But really important to note her role in the foundation of Lourdes as a place of pilgrimage, because it is where the Virgin Mary appeared to her 18 times. And she gave the instructions to Bernadette to dig, to build the chapel, and that people should attend processions there. So obviously that shows us why it's a place of pilgrimage, because it's a place associated with the Virgin Mary and with these miracles. So what do people do at Lourdes today? We've got 5 million people heading there every year. What are they doing whilst they're there? Well, they might visit and pray in the sanctuary of Our Lady of Lourdes, which is pictured there on the screen. So they will head there to pray and feel that closeness with the Virgin Mary, because it's where she actually appeared. People will attend masses in the grotto where the visions occurred. So, you know, obviously we know masses and prayer are so important for Catholics. And so attending a mass at this place of pilgrimage would be very special, wouldn't it? And it'd be a really, really moving experience, I think. They would pray the rosary at the grotto. Remember, the rosary helps Catholics to pray Hail Marys. So, you know, it's a place to pray and again, maybe, you know, give thanks to God or pray for help with whatever you're going through in life. It's, you know, really important for that feeling of closeness with God and with the Virgin Mary. People will drink or bathe in the water from the spring, or they might collect some to take home, because as we've said, it's believed to have miraculous healing powers, and you know, miracles have been recognized as having happened here thanks to this water. People will, as we've said, take part in those torchlight Marian processions, which will take place at 9 p.m. every evening during the summer. So we can see that in the bottom image there on the screen, taking part in those very important processions. They'll visit the museum, they'll visit the Bernadette Museum to learn more about the history of the site. And many people will actually volunteer to help look after sick and disabled pilgrims, who of course will be attending because they might be hopeful of a cure for their condition. And so many people will volunteer to help actually look after them and care for them during their time on pilgrimage to Lourdes. So why is Lourdes so important today? Well, over 200 million people have now attended Lourdes on pilgrimage. So 5 million continue to attend every year. But in total, since it became a place of pilgrimage after these visions, 200 million people have now attended. It is important because the Virgin Mary is believed to have appeared here 18 times. And of course, that healing water is believed to have miraculous powers. It is seen as a very spiritual place that strengthens faith, brings people closer to God, and has healed people. As we've said, those miracles are believed to have taken place at Lourdes. So it's seen as a place where you can have closeness with God. It's an experience which can strengthen your faith. And for many people, they believe that it can actually result in healing and in miraculous cures. So really, really important for Catholics. So what is the impact then of visiting Lourdes? What is the impact of traveling here? So we could say it strengthens faith. It could be cited as providing spiritual healing. You know, spending time here could help you spiritually. It might even be described as leading to physical healing. Some people do attribute physical cures to the holy water here, for example. It might lead to a feeling of inner peace, a feeling of togetherness, because you are collectively participating in this experience, whether that's attending the Mass or taking part in the procession. It might lead to an increased sense of identity. You know, it might reaffirm you in your religious beliefs. And it could also result in spiritual renewal. You know, it might leave you feeling refreshed and invigorated in your faith, because you've attended this really important spiritual place, and that has left you, as I say, feeling spiritually renewed and ready to return home with a really strong sense of faith and, you know, renewed belief in God and commitment to your religion. So there is our overview of Lourdes, our first place of pilgrimage. Very popular place of pilgrimage. Many people do travel here, and as I say, we've got those miraculous cures that are attributed to the healing water here, which is why so many people, in particular those with disabilities or sickness, actually travel here in hope of healing, looking for that divine cure. Our second place of pilgrimage then, our contrasting place of pilgrimage, is Iona, Scotland. And as you can see straight away, it's going to be contrasting because it's a lot quieter. I cannot see 5 million people crowding onto the beach. So we're going to have a look in the same way at what Iona is all about. So what is the history of this island that makes it a place of pilgrimage? And then what actually happens if I go here? So where is Iona? Let's start with our geography question. And it is an island off the west coast of Scotland. Now, in contrast to the 5 million people who attend Lourdes every year, only 130,000 people visit Iona. So that is still obviously quite a significant amount, but it's certainly nowhere near the 5 million heading to Lourdes annually. Now, in the same way that Saint Bernadette is associated with Lourdes, there is an important saint associated with Iona, and that is Saint Columba. And we'll talk more about him and his missionary work in just a moment. Well, actually, we'll do that now, because we're going to talk about why Iona became a place of pilgrimage. So it's described as the birthplace of Christianity in Scotland. Saint Columba arrived here from Ireland in 563 AD. He founded a monastery here that then sent missionaries to the British mainland to convert people to Christianity. The abbey here is one of the oldest Christian religious centres in Western Europe, so really important for the history of the religion. It is a place where saints such as St. Columba have lived, and prayers are believed to have been answered here. And people have been travelling here on pilgrimage since the 7th century. So obviously with Lourdes, that has only been a place of pilgrimage since the 19th century, after those visions, whereas Iona has been a place of pilgrimage for much longer. It is, as I've put here, a long-standing place of pilgrimage. So what will people actually do here? Obviously, it's much quieter, it's much more rural. So what will they actually do? So they might take a tour of Iona Abbey, learning about all that history, and also about those who are buried here, because there are actually over 50 monarchs buried here. They might attend the service, the daily service at the Abbey. So in the same way people attended Mass at the grotto, they might attend the daily service at the Abbey here. So they'll be worshipping God and praying. They might join, and this is quite an important point, the weekly pilgrimage walk around the island, which includes stopping at places of historical and religious significance, such as St. Martin's Cross and the Nunnery. So there is a weekly pilgrimage walk. I think it's on a Tuesday, or I might just be making that up. I don't know. Maybe. I think it is. I'll have to Google it. Don't quote me on that. But yes, there is a weekly pilgrimage walk that pilgrims can join in and attend. There is also an opportunity on the island for a lot of private prayer and reflection, of course, because it's rural, remote, and it's very peaceful. So there are opportunities for time alone. And it's also, of course, a great opportunity to enjoy the natural beauty and the fresh air, which you could say brings people closer to God, because you are, able to connect with creation and spend time reflecting on how beautiful the world is and how amazing this world that God has created really is. So that leads me on actually to why Iona is so important today, because it's described as a place with a thin veil between heaven and earthly life. Because it is so rural and remote, and because the air is so clean and the views are so beautiful, it is actually described as a place with a thin veil between heaven and earth. So it's basically closer to heaven than most places on earth. So obviously you're going to therefore feel much closer with God, aren't you? It's also, as we've said, one of the oldest Christian religious centres in Western Europe. So historically, it's a very important place. The connection to St. Columba is also very important, of course, in terms of, again, the history and development of the religion, especially in Western Europe. And it's a long-standing place of pilgrimage. So the fact people have been going here on pilgrimage since the 7th century is an important point, isn't it? It shows you, again, historically, the significance of this place. And so we've got to think, well, people have been coming here since the 7th century, but what is the impact of visiting today? So again, it will strengthen your faith. It will lead to a feeling of closeness with God, especially because it is a place with that thin veil. It can lead to, of course, increased knowledge of the religion's history. It might lead to feelings of inner peace because it is remote and rural and you've got that time to think and reflect. It might lead to spiritual healing, of course, and again, spiritual renewal. Attending this important place of pilgrimage can lead to that spiritual renewal as a result of that closeness with God, and that opportunity to pray, reflect, go on the pilgrimage walk, and learn more about your religion's history. So let's now actually contrast these two places of pilgrimage. Let's look at the key similarities between them, but also then, of course, the key differences. So what do Lourdes and Iona have in common? Well, both involve going on a journey to a place of spiritual importance and significance, don't they? Both are spiritually important. They are deeply spiritual places for Christians. People pray at both places and take part in masses at both places, whether that's in the grotto, whether that's in the church. Most people will leave having a renewed sense of faith, and it will have a profound effect on them. So, both often have a profound effect on those who make the pilgrimage. It leads to strengthened faith and spiritual healing. And both are associated with saints. In Lourdes, this is, of course, Saint Bernadette, whilst in Iona, this is Saint Columba. So there are similarities in terms of, these places strengthen faith. They are deeply spiritual places, and they often have that profound effect on those who've attended. And of course, both are associated with a saint. But what about the differences? Well, Lourdes has a huge basilica, whereas Iona is a small island. We've got the size comparison here of, the 5 million pilgrims every year in contrast to 130,000. So obviously Iona is much quieter with fewer pilgrims attending. Lourdes includes that large Marian procession every night, whereas Iona involves one weekly smaller walk around the island. So we can actually contrast there in terms of the procession, excuse me, and the pilgrimage walk. Iona has been a place of pilgrimage for much longer, we could say. It's been a place of pilgrimage since the 7th century, whereas Lourdes has only become a place of pilgrimage since the 19th century. And Lourdes is known for the apparitions of the Virgin Mary, whilst Iona is known for St. Columba's founding of the monastery. So there are different reasons, of course, that they have become places of pilgrimage. So let's have a look at an exam style question, shall we? We could be asked to explain 2 contrasting examples of Christian pilgrimage. And remember, when the question says contrasting, that means clearly different. So the 2 examples need to be clearly different. And so the 2 we would use are Lourdes and Iona. So here's what you could have said according to the AQA mark scheme. Remember, the command word explain means to go into detail by giving a reason and or example. So AQA said you could say about Lourdes that pilgrims go because of the miracles that happen there. Some pray for a miracle in their own life, for example, to be healed. Those who are too ill to walk have to be taken by special ambulances and have helpers to accompany them. There are huge crowds. The basilica is huge and a large number attend the services there. Many people visit the grotto where Mary appeared to Saint Bernadette. And then, so, you know, you would explain one of those points. And then in contrast, we've got Iona. So they've said it is a small island, which is quiet and peaceful. Pilgrims go there for many different reasons, some of them personal. They spend time praying and studying the Bible together in the quietness. It is easy for them to be alone if they want to, even if they've gone with a group. You know, you can go off and relax and take in the amazing views. It does not get crowded, except in some of the old buildings, which people like to visit, so it's more spacious. They like to remember the saints of the past who lived and prayed there, for example, Saint Columba. So again, you would need to pick one main point about the island and give that detail so that you have got 2 contrasting examples, that you are saying Lourdes on the one hand is a place of pilgrimage that is attended by millions of people, whereas Iona is much smaller, much quieter, with, you know, 130,000 people per year. And of course, Lourdes associated with Bernadette and the Virgin Mary, whereas Iona is associated with St. Columba and the founding of the first early monastery and abbey. So let's just conclude, shall we, with our knowledge check, which is our opportunity to just go over the key concepts that we needed to learn today. So question 1 is, what is a pilgrimage? Can you remember what the word means? Question 2, why do people go to Lourdes? Can you give me 2 reasons? Question 3, what do people then do at Lourdes? Question 4, what is the impact of going to Lourdes? Can you give me 1 impact of going to southern France to take part in the Marian procession or pray in the grotto? Or, of course, take home some healing water. What about number 5 then? Why do people go to Iona? Can you give 2 reasons? 6, what do people do when they're there? And number 7, what is the impact of going to Iona? So again, what is the impact? What is the effect it will have on you as an individual? Thank you for watching. I do hope that's been helpful. Very best of luck with your studies. Bye-bye for now.